The wind howled like a wounded wolf across the frozen ridges of Black Hollow, a lonely mining town tucked deep in the mountains of the Wyoming Territory. Snow fell in sharp, slanting sheets, biting at skin and bone, swallowing roads, rooftops, and the last traces of mercy. It was the kind of storm that erased footprints and secrets alike. And on that bitter night, it tried to bury the truth of what Sheriff Dalton Crow had done. Folks in Black Hollow used to say that Dalton Crow was the law. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a silver badge pinned over a heart that had long since turned to stone, he carried himself like a king among peasants. Men tipped their hats. Women lowered their eyes. No one dared question him. No one, except her. Her name was Eliza Bennett. Eliza came to Black Hollow 2 winters ago, riding in on a tired mare with nothing but a carpetbag and a stare steady as sunrise. She had lost her father to a fever back east and had come west seeking work as a schoolteacher. The town was rough, but she was tougher. She taught the miners' children their letters by day and read scripture by lamplight at night. There was a quiet strength about her, a dignity that made even the rowdiest men straighten their backs when she walked by. Sheriff Crow noticed her the moment she stepped off that wagon. He began with flowers, then compliments, then gifts she never asked for. Eliza declined each one politely, her voice calm but unyielding. She had seen the hunger in his eyes, the kind that didn't come from affection but from possession. One evening, as the snow clouds gathered heavy and low, Crow cornered her outside the church. The town square lay empty, shutters already drawn against the coming storm. "Eliza," he said, his voice smooth as oiled leather, "I've been patient. A woman alone in a place like this needs protection. Marry me. I'll give you a fine house, a warm hearth. You'll never want for anything." Eliza met his gaze without flinching. "Sheriff Crow, I would rather live free in hardship than caged in comfort." The words struck harder than any slap. His jaw tightened. The mask slipped. For the first time, the town's mighty sheriff looked small and furious. That night, the blizzard came roaring down from the peaks like God's own judgment, and Eliza Bennett vanished. Now, friends, before we ride deeper into this storm of a story, take just a moment. Hit that like button, share this tale with someone who loves a powerful old Western story, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss stories of courage, justice, and redemption from the wild frontier. Your support keeps these stories alive. By morning, the town was buried waist-deep in snow. Sheriff Crow organized a search party with a performance worthy of an actor on a grand stage. He barked orders. He cursed the weather. He claimed she must have wandered off and lost her way. But old Thomas Reed, the stable hand, knew something wasn't right. He'd seen Crow riding hard toward Widow's Cliff the night before. Eliza slumped across his saddle like a sack of grain. Widow's Cliff was a jagged stretch of rock overlooking a frozen gorge. In summer, the drop alone was enough to kill a man. In winter, the rocks below turned slick with ice, sharp as broken glass. Reed kept his mouth shut, for a time. Down in that frozen gorge, beneath layers of snow and stone, Eliza Bennett did not die. When Crow had thrown her from the cliff, the storm had swallowed her scream. She tumbled through darkness and ice, striking branches that tore her coat and slowed her fall. By some miracle, she landed not on stone but in a drift of snow piled deep against a fallen pine. Pain shot through her body. Her arm burned with what she knew was a break. Blood warmed the snow beneath her head. The wind clawed at her like a living thing. She could have closed her eyes, could have surrendered, but Eliza Bennett was not made for surrender. With teeth clenched and breath trembling, she dragged herself toward the shelter of the fallen tree. Every inch felt like a mile. The storm raged on, covering the edge of the cliff above, erasing evidence. Erasing her, except she was still breathing. All night she lay there, half buried, whispering prayers into the wind. At dawn, a trapper named Silas Boone rode through the gorge checking his lines. Silas was a mountain man with a beard thick as briars and a heart gentler than spring rain. He spotted a scrap of blue fabric against the white. He nearly missed her, but fate had other plans. Silas carried her to his cabin deep in the timberlands. For days she drifted between fever and frost. He set her arm, wrapped her wounds, and fed her broth spoonful by spoonful. When she finally woke clear-eyed and aware, she did not weep. She told him everything. Silas listened, jaw tightening beneath his beard. In the old days, he'd seen men like Dalton Crow, men who wore the badge but served only themselves. "You aiming to run?" he asked. Eliza stared into the firelight, her face pale but resolute. "No," she said softly. "I aim to return." Weeks passed before she could ride. The town of Black Hollow believed her long dead. Sheriff Crow had already begun spinning his next tale of grief and regret. Some even whispered he'd courted her out of pure love. Then one Sunday morning, as the church bell rang hollow and slow, the doors creaked open. Gasps filled the room. Eliza Bennett stood in the doorway, scarred but unbroken. Snow clung to her boots. Her arm rested in a sling. And beside her stood Silas Boone, rifle across his back. Sheriff Crow went pale as bone. Now, if this story has you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. These frontier tales remind us that even in the darkest storms, courage can rise. Join our growing community and ride with us through more unforgettable stories. Eliza walked straight down the aisle. Every step echoed. "You told them I wandered off," she said, her voice steady. "You told them I was lost." Crow forced a laugh. "Miss Bennett, you're confused. The storm. You threw me from Widow's Cliff." Silence dropped heavy as lead. Old Thomas Reed stepped forward then, hat trembling in his hands. "I seen him," he croaked. "Seen him ride out with her." The room shifted. The power Crow had wielded for years began to fracture. Crow reached for his gun. He was fast, but Silas Boone was faster. The crack of a rifle split the church air. Crow's weapon flew from his hand, skidding across the wooden floor. Men who had once feared him now stepped forward. The miner whose son Eliza had taught. The shopkeeper whose taxes Crow had doubled without cause. Even the preacher, trembling but resolute. They stripped him of his badge. Justice in the Old West was rarely clean. Sometimes it came with a rope, sometimes with exile. For Dalton Crow, it came with both disgrace and departure. Bound and escorted beyond town limits, he was given a horse and a warning never to return. The storm that had tried to bury Eliza now seemed to cleanse the town instead. In the weeks that followed, Black Hollow changed. Fear loosened its grip. The children laughed louder in the schoolhouse. The church filled not with silence, but with song. And Eliza? She stayed. Not because she had to, but because she chose to. Strength in the Old West wasn't just about guns and grit. Sometimes it was about standing up when the whole world wanted you buried beneath snow and silence. Before we close this chapter of Frontier Justice, take one last moment to like this video, share it with fellow lovers of Western stories, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more powerful tales of bravery, survival, and redemption from the untamed frontier. Out on Widow's Cliff, the wind still howls when winter comes. But the people of Black Hollow no longer bow to it, because they remember the woman who was thrown into the storm and rode back stronger than it.